on a tour of Africa in a bid to boost ties in the region. This is Modi's second leg of a four-nation tour in Africa, which started in Mozambique. It's his first visit to this country as India's leader. Addressing the media after official talks between the two leaders, President Zuma said some sectors were identified for cooperation between the two countries.
We are looking to increase and diversify South African exports to India. We have identified new areas for market access, including the defense, deep mining, renewable energy, and health sectors.
India is South Africa's sixth largest trade partner. Over 100 Indian companies are operating in South Africa. President Zuma says these companies are playing a significant role in the country's economy and job creation. According to the two leaders, the two nations' shared values and struggles have provided a strong partnership.
Through centuries, India and South Africa have nurtured strong people-to-people ties. We stood together in our common fight against racial subjugation and colonialism. It was in South Africa that Mahatma Gandhi found his true calling.
Modi said in the last 2 decades, the relationship between the two countries has been a story of strong advances and concrete achievements. The two leaders agree that this visit has certainly further strengthened the already warm historical relations between the two countries and will further elevate their cooperation.
It is important that our two countries continue to work together in the quest to peace and security on the continent, and we acknowledge and commend the leadership role that India is playing in the peacekeeping efforts on the continent. We have also agreed to continue working together in the reform of global governance institutions, notably the United Nations Security Council.
Two-way trade and grown by over 300% in last 10 years. Indian companies hold strong business interests in South Africa. About 1/4 of our investments in Africa are in this country, and there is potential to expand our business and investment ties further.
The two leaders also signed a number of trade deals. South Africa has also undertaken to ease visa regulations for Indian nationals to promote tourism. Yolisa Njamela, CCTV, Pretoria, South Africa.
Joining me in the studio with more on Prime Minister Modi's visit is Julie Shire in Johannesburg. Julie, as always, welcome to the show. Now, of course, this will be the first state visit by an Indian Prime Minister in about a decade. Of course, this signifies a sort of shift in terms of India's strategic plan for South Africa. Is it just about trade this time around?
Good evening, Uche. That's right. It is the first time in 10 years that an Indian Prime Minister visits South Africa. So this visit is being seen as a high-level political visit with important diplomatic initiatives. India is South Africa's sixth largest trade partner, and Modi is looking to boost those ties between the two countries. President Jacob Zuma is also looking to strengthen that relationship. There's already a number of Indian companies such as Tata, Mahindra, CIPLA and Essar, among others, with a heavy presence in SA. And today the two leaders signed agreements on information, technology and tourism, vowed to work on further deals in mining, pharmaceuticals and defense. But this visit, as Modi mentioned, isn't just about visiting an important strategic partner. There's also historical ties that are deeply rooted. Let's not forget that Mahatma Gandhi began his public life here in racially segregated South Africa, and that South Africa has 1.3 million Indians living here, the largest population on the continent. So this visit is meant to strengthen economic ties and also address the Indian diaspora in the country, Uche.
Now, Julie, at the recent India-Africa summit that took place in December or in 2015, we know that Modi did promise about $10 billion in credit lines for projects across the continent. Are there any talks around South Africa maybe tapping into that credit line?
India did announce that credit of $10 billion at the summit, but if we consider the amount, it's a modest sum when compared to the volume of Chinese investment in Africa. And even though Modi admitted that India has drifted away from the continent in the past few years and failed to fulfill many promises, it now hopes to change that situation. But it's still unclear how much or exactly how South Africa will be tapping into that. But Modi wants India to be a development partner of Africa, and that is a partnership beyond strategic concerns and economic benefits. So we'll have to see what lies ahead, Uche.
Now, in terms of relations, we know that India is also hoping that Africa will help it in its quest for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Now, is South Africa still strongly behind India when it comes to this?
Yes, India is hoping that does happen, but for it to happen, it would require reform of the UN, and it is to be achieved. And if it is to be achieved, India does need the assistance from the African nations. South Africa has already expressed support for a revamp of the Security Council. South Africa has also made it clear for some years that it wants and aspires to become a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So of course they are backing India's quest. India and the African continent account for 1/3 of the global population, yet they do not have a permanent Security Council seat. Those seats are occupied by France, the United Kingdom, China, Russia, and obviously the United States. So they are definitely trying to back them and hoping for the best.
Well, Julie, thank you so much. And very quickly, Shweta Bajaj is now joining me in Delhi for some insight into this four-nation African tour. Shweta, as always, welcome. Now, of course, this four-nation African tour is yet another charm offensive to promote Modi's Made in India narrative. What are Modi's specific targets this time around? And is this trip strategically geopolitical?
Absolutely. There are two really faces to this visit. One is trade and investment. The second one is the position of Africa in terms of what India wants to do with its diplomatic and geopolitical relations with the world. On the trade front, of course, that is top on the agenda, especially in South Africa, where PM Modi is at this point in time. They want to increase the basket of trade, really expand it much more. Yes, there has been amazing increase in the last few years, but remember that the levels that we are coming from, the levels are so small that the percentage does seem larger, but the trade figures itself are extremely small. So that is one area where Prime Minister Modi is trying to expand. Secondly, of course, Make in India is his pet project. He wants to make sure that many companies come to India and start setting up their factories here. That's another relation that it's looking at Africa, as it also understands that as India gets to a position where its population is rising, but economically it has to look at other countries to get higher growth. Africa remains its key. Geopolitically, of course, the location of Africa makes sure that India has to look at the countries seriously. Second of all, India, since Prime Minister Modi came to power, has been giving specific attention to Africa. This also includes India-Africa summit that happened only last year, seeing a very massive attendance. So that is another way that he's.
Oh, it looks like we lost her there. But many thanks to both of you for giving us those insights. Of course, Yolisa Njamela joining us in Johannesburg and Shweta Bajaj in Delhi.